Hello there, and welcome to the CP7 podcast. My name's Parm,
And I'm Andy.
and together we are Chrono Passion 7. Hello, and welcome to episode 11, where we are going to talk about independent brands. Our first show of 2024. Why not kick it off with a nice little topic? But before we do that, Andy, what have you got on the wrist then?
Today I am wearing a Barfoli, which is a Swiss brand, actually, a vintage watch. It's actually a new old stock watch, which I bought last year sometime. And it's a watch what I don't take too seriously. It's very slim, very lightweight, classic kind of dress watch, but you can wear it daily as well. It's quartz, it has a date, it looks cool, and yeah, it's just my daily kind of beta watch, so it's nothing too special, but it does give me some enjoyment. I do enjoy it. But anyway, Palm, what are you rocking?
So I'm wearing my Rolex Explorer 214270. The Explorer 1, it's not called an Explorer 1, but people call it that to differentiate from the 2. It's the 39mm. And I set myself a challenge this month. I thought some people are doing dry January. I'm doing Explorer January, where I will not wear another watch all month. I will not even think about wearing another watch all month. And can I do it? So that is what is on my wrist.
Whoa, so it's quite the challenge. How are you finding it so far? Are you hating the Explorer, or are you still in love with it?
I still like it, actually. I think it's a proper January watch. It's a proper January in the UK watch, where it's cold
Yeah.
outside, and yeah, but actually a bit of sun today, nice and fresh. But it just matches the mood, no frills. So yeah, it's quite good actually. I couldn't think. No, I was actually thinking, what should I wear this month? And it was just like, okay, let's go for that one.
Yeah, no, it's a good challenge. A challenge for me would be keep a watch for a month. Never mind, you know.
Yeah. Well, you've done pretty well. It's coming up to a month, so I think you've had, which was
Yeah,
the
I'm not
gold
doing
bar.
bad.
You've kept it.
Yeah, that's been with me since October. Yeah, I can't be feeling well. Don't know what's going
God,
on.
yeah, something's going on. Right, okay. Andy, in his own inimitable Leeds via Barcelona style, is going to tell us what today's show's about.
I sure am. So, today's show is all about independence. And we do love independent brands here at Chrono Passion 7. And we also, as you all know too well, love to set ourselves a challenge. So, we've picked 3 brands each. And we've picked different categories. So we've picked accessibility. We think that's important. We want to share brands what maybe you haven't heard about before. And you'd be surprised how cool these brands are and actually how accessible they are as well. So they're like the sub 5,000K brands. Then from 5K up to around 20K. The next level was we were looking for that mid-tier independent. So still giving you accessibility, but upping the level on luxury, on finishing, on design. And then to finish it all off, to round it all off, no limit, just pick our ultimate independent brand, which really jumps out to us. Per each brand, there'll be 2 watches. So we give you a little history about each brand, a bit of info around each brand, what they're all about, and then our 2 favorite pieces per brand as well. So yeah, it's certainly going to be a fun one. So yeah, let's get into it. But before we do, first of all, Palm, just what are your opening thoughts on independence in general? What's your feeling towards them?
I think independents have a very important place in the watch world. You could say outside the big brands, which probably keeps everyone in the game, newbies and people who are not so afflicted as we are in the game. But you could almost call them the lifeblood of the watch industry because they offer something different. When you get a generic brand, a very popular brand, you get a model of watch, all you can do is buy that model of watch. Unless you're some high roller, you're not going to get any changes on that. There's going to be no variation on it. Independent brands seem to give you that flexibility at various price points. I mean, you do have to be a high roller to get some of these. You have to be, a big player. But I also think there are a lot of watches at such a good price point, mid-range, low range, and high range, like we're going to talk about now. And I think they just give you that variety. They keep it fresh as well. If you keep doing the same thing, you get bored doing it. And I think there is a space for independent brands in a watch collection, even if it is full of regular general brands such as the usual suspects. And the variety is amazing. Since we've done this challenge, I did not know how much variety it was. We had to pick 2 of each as well. So it's quite the challenge. And Andy, what do you think about independence? Are you a fan, or do you have a certain opinion on them?
Yeah, 100%. So there's not much more I can add other than echoing what you have already said. But I think what I like about independence is it's a spark and a dream in somebody's vision, right? And I think it's a nice thing to have in such a crowded industry where people are willing to take that risk, because it's a crowded market. The watch industry is a tough place to be in. And it's somebody going, you know what, I've got a vision. Working at a major brand, I can't get that vision across. And I want to take the plunge, the leap of faith, and actually do it myself. And I think it's something you've got to take your hat off to and respect. Whether you love some of these brands or not. Not every brand's going to be to your taste, but just out of respect of an individual taking that leap of faith, I think it's really impressive. So that's one thing I love about independence. Also, it's just the vast amount of creativity and playfulness what goes into them as well. But not in all of them. This is why variety is a spice of life. You get serious, more conventional looking independent watches, and then you have your out there and totally wacky watches as well. So I think it's a fun, vibrant space. And yeah, they're the watches of the future, right? Every watch company out there started off as a small, humble company, and I think we shouldn't lose touch with that. So yeah, I think that's my few cents on independence. Yeah. So I think it's time to get into the show.
Without further ado, Andy, what is your first brand and two choices of watches in the under £5,000 category?
So I've gone for Crepers, a brand close to my heart because I owned a Crepers Hydrographer for a good year, which isn't bad going for me. And I do kind of miss that watch, looking at old pictures of it recently, obviously with thinking about doing this show. And some of you may argue, is Crepers a micro brand or are they an independent brand? It's a very grey line, and it is a very tough one to determine. We've even asked experts within the industry, and even they echo the same comments. However, I believe it's a brand that many people are not aware of, and they should be. So, originally founded in Malaga, and that was back in 2010, and it's Ana Nevado who created and founded this company. And the belief and the brand definition, if you like, was all around creating dive watches for real communities. So, they have Facebook groups, a really strong Facebook group community actually, where they push ideas forward and they interact with their community on new projects. They even take ideas from the community and then make them a reality. So Creppers are very focused on dive watches. Functionality and practicality is at the heart of their design. So a watch has to be useful, it has to be functional, it has to have form and function. They will never build a watch over 45 millimeters. That's their rule of thumb. That's the maximum size they will go to before they start to think it's not practical as a watch. It must be capable of diving, of course, but also they want the watch to be capable of being just a daily watch to enjoy and wear. Now, the watches, what they do produce are often recreations of watches from other brands in the past. So they will never create a watch, say from Amiga, what is current. They're not going to make a 300M out of nowhere. That isn't what they are about. They're about reproducing watches what are no longer there, what fanatics, dive watch fanatics, really want back and bringing back to the forefront. So that being one of them is the Hydrographer, which is watch number one. So the Hydrographer is based off a Longines, believe it or not, from World War II all the way back in 1942. So that's quite some time, and these Longines are extremely rare. It's a hydrographer services piece, so it had the military stamp on the back of this watch and the crow's foot or broad arrow, like a true military tool watch. These watches are like gold dust, and there is a cult following around them. I believe they were made out of silver originally, the cases. They're just, yeah, good luck getting one, and if you do find one, they're up there in the thousands, very difficult to acquire. As if you look at the hydrographer from Creppers, they made 499 units available. So it's a limited run. Everything they do is a limited run. However, it's the audience, that's around the target for the audience they have. That's a good volume to make sure the people who really do want that watch can get that piece into their hands. And the hydrographer model is actually called the 1942, but not just as a nod, obviously, to that era of time where the Longines came from. It's actually the water resistance as well, which is 1,942 meters of water resistance, which is quite insane. The watch, of course, is huge. You'll see in the pictures in the show notes. So quick plug for the Instagram, Chrono_Passion_7. Make sure you check out the show notes there to see this crazy watch. It's 45 millimeters. It's 50 millimeters thick. So it is a beast of a watch and it turns heads for sure. It's quite cool because you can configure the crown to be on the left or the right side of a watch. I certainly preferred it on the left, otherwise it just digs into your into your hand and it's very, very painful to wear. But it gave me a lot of joy. I didn't buy it because of the military links. I'll be honest, I'm not a military watch guy at all. I just liked it because it looked so solid. Like I could just wear that anywhere. And honestly, when it arrived to me, it was just indestructible. I've dived in, I've actually dived with the watch. So I've put it through its real paces, put it through its tests. It's been on vacations with me and it's always done well. And it's always looked good. I even wore it to a Greek wedding and it didn't look too out, it didn't look too out there. It actually looked pretty cool. So the second watch, which I chose from Creppers, is the Megamatic 1200M, which is a 1200 meter water resistant piece. It has very similar design IDs to what you would say is the Ploprof from Amiga. However, the watch which this actually tributes and pays tribute to is the older Amiga prototypes, which was the Electronique and Mega Quartz. So these watches didn't do so well from Amiga and they look so cool. They're such a good looking watch. But the battery, just back then, it were running at 300 hertz. It had that hum and it was just burning through batteries and it wasn't a practical diver. So it's a museum piece. You just can't find these pieces anymore. And once again, Creppers are like, hey, we're going to make this accessible for you guys once again. And I love it. It's not as large as the hydrographer. It's at 44 millimeters, 13.5 millimeter thick. So it's not too bad. Both watches are ETA movements, so they're using great Swiss quality movements. So ETA 2824, and in the hydrographer, it's a 2892, just workhorses. And the great thing about this is you can get these watches serviced pretty much anywhere in the world, right? That's the great thing about ETA. So yeah, they're my two choices. And Parm, which is your favorite out of the two Creppers? I know you remember my hydrographer for sure.
Indeed, I do. And I just remember that being massive. But that had a really sort of 1960s covert operations, armed forces kind of look to it. It was cool, very cool. A bit too big for my liking, but Decrepus Magmatic, that definitely looks very nice. It definitely has vintage Ploprof design cues with that orange hand. I like the nice touch with the blue hour hand. These are very tooly watches, and yeah, nice choices. Very nice. Sporty, tooly. Very opposite of you, but there you go.
It's nothing what I wear these days. But I do admire them. I do admire them. Maybe it's because of Spanish brand as well, and they're so well made. Honest, I'm not affiliated with them at all, but they're so well made. And these watches, sorry, just to give you the price point, 750 euros. I mean, come on, that plus that. But I mean, under 1K. These are fantastic watches. But Pam, I'm interested to see. I'm sure you haven't picked anything like I have. What's your first choice for the under 5K challenge?
Right, I've actually gone dress watch. I mean, what's going on here? We've flipped sides, we've turned tables. So my first choice is a brand called Louis Erard, but as we say here in London, Louis Erard. So Louis Erard was actually born into a family of Swiss watchmakers in Le Chaux de Fonds, Switzerland. So he has the brand is actually steeped in a very rich heritage. I didn't know this. I actually thought that this was quite a new brand because we thought we were covering independents. I thought they were all relatively new. But this actually started in 1931, the company. So Watchmaker Erard, after working in a number of workshops, founded a watchmaking school in 1929 where he taught other watchmakers, and after which he then established his own Louis Erard company, which specialized in casing, because at this time, watch components were generally produced by several independent artisans, all of whom would sell the parts to an assembler, such as Louis Erard. So you never got everything from the same place. And the assembler's speciality was creating a timepiece from these components, building and adjusting the finished watch ready for sale. So there was quite a process going on back then. So as I mentioned before, 1931, Louis Erard took to producing and selling watches under his own name. After 6 years, it employed many more people. There is a relevance to why I'm giving this depth of history, developing the brand and continuing to work with third parties. So this is the key part of their history, which I was quite oblivious to. The company actively contributed to the development of the legendary Valjoux 72, which you will find an Andy's Zenith monopusher, which was launched in 1938, the Valjoux 72, not Andy's monopusher, and used by Rolex and Patek Philippe. So there's some serious history there and some importance to the brand. Fast forwarding to the 70s, they survived the quartz crisis as well without going under, which was again a massive thing for any brand out there then. And then another key moment in their history, they added key functions to the famous PESO 7001 movement, which was initially launched in 1971, but in particular, they developed a power reserve indicator and a regulator. Louis Erard is actually renowned for its regulator watches. Basically, it's where the hours, minutes, and seconds are run through separate mechanisms. And fast forwarding to 2003, the brand was purchased by a group of investors headed by Alain Spinedi, who was convinced of its potential, thinking with that history and heritage, they were still around after the quartz crisis, been through it all. He decided he wanted a quality watchmaking company at a very good price point. And I think this is what attracted me to this brand. And I'm sure this is what attracts a lot of people to the brand. But my first choice is the Petit Seconde Malachite. And I'll give you a bit of history of why I chose this. I was in a watch shop. I tried on a nice Piaget green malachite dial watch. It was white gold malachite dial with a green alligator strap. Cost close to £30,000. Kindly said, thank you, sir. I'll give that back to you. And then I thought, well, let me look for malachite dials. And I found this Louis Erard Petit Seconde, and at the price point of £2,764, which you can agree is less than a tenth of the price of that Piaget. So this put this watch on my radar straight away. I mean, it's a limited edition to 99 pieces. I think you can quite easily get them because the brand isn't so well known. Again, one of my favorite points of this is the diameter is 39 millimeters. The sweet spot, I'd say. The height is 12.25 millimeters as well. So it's not too tall. It's not too big. It's almost carrying perfect proportions. It has the signature fir tree rhodium plated hands that you'd get on a Louis Erard. The movement, and here's probably why the price point isn't so high. The movement is a Sellita SW2611. Small seconds with an open case back and the obligatory 38-hour power reserve. It has a domed sapphire crystal with anti-reflective treatment on both sides, but while the case back does have a little bit of detailing on the case, cut engraved into the case, it's not that much to look at. It's a Sellita movement, so if you enjoy looking at pretty movements, then this is not the one to look at, but for that price, you can't really argue. And then going to the actual selling point for me, the green malachite dial. It's a beautiful green dial. I have seen this in person as well. I saw it in Geneva Airport. They had a Louis Erard little counter in one of the watch shops, and it is just a beautiful malachite. I do love the stone malachite, hence I was looking at that Piaget one. And this is an open worked malachite, so it's got some nice gradations on it. And the small seconds is at 6 o'clock and a snailed opaline matte silver counter. So it's got little rings going round and round in that sub dial, which gives it just that extra little bit of effect. It's got a green leather strap, quite basic, quite standard, but that is a very nice watch. And for a brand to give you all that for under £3,000, I think that's just a bargain and a half. They also do it in a lapis lazuli, which I'll come on to later on. And also remember the PESO 7001 movement for one of my later choices, and remember the lapis lazuli, because it was between the two of them and the malachite one as to one that I would potentially buy. So Andy, what do you think about this?
So the excellence is beautiful, right? It's gorgeous. I love the green. I love the dial. The malachite just pops, right? And it's such a expensive material to get your hands on normally in a luxury dress watch. So to get that under 5k, I think is fantastic. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Is it a watch what I'm hungry to get for myself? I'm not sure. Do I respect it hugely? However, 100% I do. Yeah, I think it's a great choice.
And so for my second choice for Louis Erard, it's again in the excellence range, but it's Le Régulateur Louis Erard X Constantin Chaikin. And it's a 39mm version. So this is a regulator watch now. Louis Erard are known for their regulators, for that making modifications on that 7001 movement. Now we're in regulator territory. So basically, let me tell you about this watch. You really do need to look at Instagram to fully appreciate this. So Konstantin Chaikin does the Joker watch. You know, he likes to do his freaky faces watch dials. And this is no exception. So Louis Hérode delivers this regulator, he says, as a sacrifice to a very strange creature, but make of that what you will, a grotesque saw-mouthed cyclops. So basically, it's got one eye, hence the cyclops, a mythological figure reinterpreted by the master watchmaker Konstantin Chaikin. So the eye, which is the hour subdial, it's an eye-shaped dial with a pupil which goes round marking the hours. The regulator is a squiggly regulator minute hand around the middle, giving you the minute readings, and then you have a seconds reading subdial, which is the mouth at 6 o'clock with some fangs. It's got like a red mouth with very white fangs and big gaping hole through the middle, and it rotates 60 seconds, and the minute hand will change once it's done a complete revolution, and so on and so forth. The hour hand will change once that's done a complete revolution. So it's a really interesting movement. It's a regulator, but a very different take on it. The Konstantin Chaikin Clown Watch has two eyes, and it has a very different method of telling the time, but this I just think is so clever the way they incorporated the regulator into this. So let me tell you a bit about the watch. It's 39 millimeters. It has a Solita SW2661 movement, which is the regulator movement, not the small seconds that was previously discussed in the malachite dial. See-through case back, 39 millimeters. There is a choice of two. I think it's 42 and a half and 39. I would prefer the 39 millimeter see-through case back. So it's just got so much going on in this. And this might make you laugh. It says a shiny purple hour circle with logos transferred in white, silver low plate with sun ray wave pattern, anthracite circular satin finished hour flange with white transfers, shiny red seconds flange. So, it's quite an interesting watch. And just to make it that little bit extra weirder, it's got a toad leather strap. Now, I'm not sure if that's toad skin or if that's just leather made to look a bit warty. I'm assuming it's leather and to give it that extra bonkers look. But I just think there's so much fun with this watch. And as Andy touched on earlier on in his words on independent brands, you can be serious and you can be fun. My two choices, I think, encapsulate that perfectly because this is such a fun watch. The previous one was quite serious. I like stone dials, hence the malachite. At a price point of £4,500, you could have one of the most fun watches out there. And with the stone dial, £2,764, you could have one of the best looking independent watches out there in this price point. But Andy, I'm sure you've got quite a few words to say about this one.
Yeah, I love it also. I think it's really, yeah, you know me and wacky watches anyway. I'm a huge fan of Chaikin and what he does and the imagination, what goes into his pieces. And what I love about this Louis Erard collaboration is that it's making his pieces accessible, which is great. It's not easy to get his pieces anymore. He's just gone huge, and the cost of production, the cost of demand, it's just how it is, right? And it's great that it's been so successful. But what I really like about Chaikin as well is that he looks at ways at allowing his fans to gain access with these kind of collaborations, and it has his ID, like his identity, all over it. But yet the innovation of Louis Erard, right, with the movement and the regulator. So I think it's a brilliant collaboration. It combines both brands perfectly with what they're all about. But yeah, it's a cool watch. Like I think it's just worthy of any collector's collection. Just to liven it up, you can wear this to so many different occasions and events. Even wearing it to the office would be fun, just to put a smile on people's face and cause a bit of a reaction, right? I think it's, yeah, just a great piece. And once again, a great choice.
Thank you very much. And yeah, you could wear both of these for under £10,000. So moving on to our next challenge criteria is an independent brand with two of their watches which are between £5,000 and £20,000. Andy, tell us about yours.
So I've been very generous once again by hopefully introducing many of our listeners to a new brand what is extremely accessible. So I haven't gone extreme on the price point. It's to the lower end of the spectrum what we set for this category. So it is sitting just over 5k, under 15k. So these watches are brilliant. So Lane Watches is my second choice, founded by Toristi Lane, a Finnish watchmaker who graduated from the Finnish watchmaking school. And from there, he had such a great journey. He worked with Lange and Son. So he was behind crafting some of their amazing innovations, and I call almost a city of a movement, the depth and detail what go into those watches and the beautiful dials. And then from there, he actually moved on to Voutilainen, which becomes extremely apparent. Once again, you've got to check out our Instagram when you see these dials. These dials are absolute works of art, and I'm going to come to that when I introduce the watches. But just to give you a little more information, in 2014, Lane actually won a Lange Watchmaking Award, which is one of the most prestigious awards that you can win as a watchmaker, and that really set the stage for Lane watches moving forward to where they are today. So jumping into my first choice, I chose the V38 Guilloche, and Guilloche is 100% what this watch is. It's a triple Guilloche dial where your center of the dial is Guilloche finished, the outer, and also your second center. So you have your seconds is at 6 o'clock, so you have your seconds independent, so it's not a center seconds, but with this allows so much creativity of the different styles of finishing and Guilloche and what he can achieve. And this is very apparent linking back to Voutilainen again, his experience in just finishing these dials, and the all Guilloche by hand is absolutely incredible. Giving you a bit more detail around the movement, it's a movement, I'll be honest, because we're always honest here. It's not a movement manufacturer I'm as aware of, but it's a voucher 5401, which is a very high level watch movement with a high level of finishing. You'll see the movement, and it does look. When I first saw the movement, it's an exhibition case back. I did honestly think it was an in-house movement. It's very very high level of finishing, and then it has a tungsten rotor, which is all finished by hand, again by Lane watches. So it's done to a very very high degree. Also, due to using this movement, it allows them to have a 9mm thickness on this piece, so it's very very slim. Comes in at around 11,500 chef. So again, it's extremely accessible for the level of detail in the level of finishing. It has beautifully applied numerals, and even the hands. The hands are made in house. They get the steel themselves, they shape the hands, size them down, and then blue the hands as well. And it's all done in house. So all of the beautiful detailing, all the artistry, what goes into these pieces is in house, which for that price point, honestly, is really, really impressive. Also, for this price point, you can contact Lane and say, hey, look, I like the triple Guilloche, but I think I'd prefer it to have like a frosted outer, frosted finishing on this dial instead, on the outer side of the bezel of the dial. Or maybe you change your mind and say, I want moon frosting all over the dial, to I want meteorite on my dial, and he can do that. That's what this brand can do for you. You have this level of detail and level of finishing for 11,000. It's really, really incredible. And I don't like to say this too much, but secondary, you can really pick up a bargain with these watches on the secondary market. But Palm, my first choice, what do you think to it?
Now, I think that is a stunning watch. And you say he worked with Kari Voutilainen, also finished. Yeah, you can see that in that dial. It's absolutely stunning. Breguet numerals, just beautiful, classic, vintage. Now this is more Andy. Now we're getting our Andy back. Great finishing on that movement. A lot of history there as well. Again, this is what we were saying. When you look into these brands, you'd think everyone's just got a short story, but that's quite a long, big story behind Lane here. And that micro rotor looks almost Egyptian. It almost looks like it's got hieroglyphics carved into it. It's beautiful. Very, very good choice.
Thank you. Yeah, I thought you would like this one. So my next choice is the Gelidus 3. And again, it has a very similar design identity to the previous, right, which we just looked at, the V38. Just to touch on the V38, just before I progress, just to give you details, it's in the name, but 38 millimeters, so it is that perfect dress watch size. Then when we progress over to the Glidus, it's slightly bigger because it's a manual winding movement, which takes up a bit more space. So it's a 40.5mm piece. It has a LA 18.1 manual wind movement inside. It's not, once again, an in-house movement, but extremely heavily modified, which you will, again, check out the show notes for this. You will 100% see what I mean with this. Now, what I love about this piece is the fact that the dial is made up from three different sections, and each segment of the dial in this case is changeable, meaning that it doesn't have to be the same material. So on the first piece which I showed you, it's using one piece of material to a point, right? Unless you want to play around a little bit. But as I say, with independence, customization for the customer is pretty much we'll do anything what we can possibly do for you. But on this model as standard, it's kind of like, okay, once again you can customize how you want the centering of the seconds to look like. So your seconds at 6, you could have that with frosting. Once again, you can have meteorite in the center. You can change all the different areas, but not just at a finishing level. You can change the materials which are being used as well, which is crazy. So it's really up to you how heavily you customize this piece. But I think that's just so much fun that you can pick different materials, different finishing, different colors as well with the 3 layers of this watch. So you have your outer ring with your applied white gold numerals. You have your center ring where you have your main hands, and then you have the 6 o'clock ring again with your running seconds, and you can have these in different colors, different finishing. So it's really, really cool how you can customize this. If that wasn't enough, on the back of a watch, it can be fully hand engraved, or you can have it fully hand frosted. It's really up to you. And I just think this is an absolute phenomenal timepiece. And I'm going to highlight even more so why I think this, because I'm going to ask Palm to guess the price. Now, we're not going to spend too much time on this, but just your first impressions of looking at the watch. We shared the pictures earlier to each other, right? When you first saw this, you see the finishing on the movement, you see that dial and the possibilities of materials, colors, finishing, what you can do to this dial. How much do you think you'd have to pay for this normally?
I'm guessing under £20,000.
You nailed it.
Gosh, the way you built it up, I'm guessing it's not going to be as high as I would think. So 13,000.
So, would you be surprised if I was to tell you it's actually 8,900?
There you go. Independent brands in action.
That's incredible, right? Meteorite dial, frosting, you pick your materials, pick your colors. Like, gosh, like that level of customization, and then even to the painful, like, yeah, please hand engrave my movement as well.
I've got to say that the movement is what's that hand engraving on that movement. I'm seeing ancient Egyptian carving. I don't know why. First I thought Art Deco-y, old worldy, but now I'm thinking even older worldy. But that looks stunning. This is one of those watches that I'd personally want to wear the other way around because it just look how cool that is. Please check the show notes on Instagram. We'll have our website up soon, but for now, bear with us on Instagram because this is very, very nice.
Yeah, awesome. Such great value. So once again, I hope I've introduced you to some brilliant value pieces which look absolutely awesome, and for what you get, extremely accessible, I'd say. But Palm, I'm excited to see what your next choice is. Which did you pick under that 20k price point?
Right, so I have picked a brand called Trilobe, which I think are coming to the forefront slowly over the last couple of years, or maybe quite fast over the last couple of years. So Trilobe is a relatively new watchmaker based in Paris, founded in 2018 by the CEO. So he's the CEO and founder, Gauthier Massonneau, who wanted to create sophisticated watches with a unique way of telling the time, especially without using traditional hands. So now you're going to wonder how he would do that. We just talked about a regulator, but a regulator does have hands. But the regulator we saw earlier did rely on discs, and this also relies on 3 discs, one for each unit of time told on a watch. Just a bit of background on Massonneau. He didn't come from a watchmaking family. He is, like you'd say, a lot of these independent brands, and he was formerly in banking and finance, so he was a savvy entrepreneur. I think we get a lot of that when we speak to young independent brands nowadays. They are entrepreneurs who just want to make their own watches. They've had enough of being told how their watches should look. They want to go out and make them for themselves. And he was, again, this is his motivation. Why I say that, his motivation was, he said he was determined to fill a void in the exciting arena of independent watchmaking. So have a bit of fun, but do something different. Do something, use engineering and mechanics with a beautiful visual effect. And that's exactly what he did. So the culmination of years of development was his first watch, which had a series of rotating discs, as I mentioned earlier, and 3 stationary pointers to show the hours, minutes, and seconds. So choice number 1 from Trilobe is the Nuit Fantastique Brume. So brume it refers to the dial color or the effect. It actually means in French a mist toned blur, artistically merging grey and brown shades together. So if you look at this dial, and we mentioned Carré Voutilainen earlier, this is not Carré Voutilainen, but it has Clou de Paris on a majority of this dial. But let's talk about the aesthetics first. The mechanism is blow your mind. But it does have a Clou de Paris guilloche on the dial, the main dial, not the chapter ring, just on the main dial. And then on the second sub dial, seconds disc, shall we call it, they use a second type of guilloche called grain d'orge, which basically is also known as barleycorn kind of guilloche, which is kind of like a cornfield, an aerial view of a cornfield, that kind of look. So you've got two types of guilloche on a dial, a stunning dial. It's grayish brown, it changes color. It's with the way they've done that Clou de Paris, you can see the waves and different lights hitting it, and it's just shadows and transitions of light just appearing and just looking amazing as your wrist will obviously move around while you're wearing this watch. Actually, before we get to the mechanism, I want to tease you a little bit more. It's 38.5 millimeters in diameter, 12.9 millimeters in height. So you can see if I would get a dress watch, 39, 38 and a half, 39 is my sweet spot. And again, this time has been no exception. It comes with a grey alligator strap, just to continue that monotone kind of theme. But now we get to the movement. It is a patented movement which has 3 discs, say rotating to represent each unit of time, hours, minutes, and seconds, which are located on the same plane, which is the dial. So what happens is, please check out Instagram. At 12 o'clock, you'll have the Trilobe logo on that beautiful Clou de Paris guilloche dial. And the chapter ring rotates for the hours and are marked by the Trilobe logo. Coming down, drilling down another unit of time, the minutes, there is, I would say, between 1 and 2, they have a minute reading. It's not a minute hand, it's a disc. So it'll just tell you if it's quarter past, it'll say 15. If it's 20 past, it'll say 20, etc., etc. It gives you a reading of the time, shall we say, rather than hands pointing to the time. So you've got your chapter ring giving you the hour. Then your vision, your line of sight will move to that minutes subdial sitting on top of the seconds, a larger seconds dial, which is 5 to 60, which also rotates anti-clockwise, giving you the seconds. So you're looking at your watch to actually tell the time. You have the chapter ring giving you the hours, indicated by the trilobe sign at 12 o'clock, anti-clockwise. Then you have 2 subdials giving you the minutes and the seconds. There's a smaller subdial for the minutes sitting on top of a larger subdial giving you the seconds. The seconds dial is situated where 7 and 8 would traditionally be, and the minutes subdial is sitting between where 10 and 11 would be. And they are basically 2 discs, the seconds and that barleycorn guilloche in the middle, and then a smaller one giving you the minutes value. It is said that that's supposed to represent infinity, the infinite path of time. So, well, to me, it just looks like a snowman with no arms, but that's what they said it represents. So there's a pointer on the minutes hand, and there's a pointer where that pointer is also will tell you where the seconds is. The seconds disc will rotate, reading 5 seconds to 60, obviously 0 to 60, and then you will have a reading of your minutes in the smaller subdial between 10 and 11. This is very difficult for me to explain. You really do need to look at that. I hope it's making sense. I think this is fascinating. I would just be looking at this because it's constant motion, and to see the minutes reading clicking over, literally there in front of you, and then the hours chapter ring rotating anti-clockwise. There's a lot going on there, and I don't know if I could describe it as well as I'd like to, but hey ho. So if you thought that was tough to describe, my second one is going to be even harder. Actually, Andy, I'm going to throw this challenge back to you. How much do you think that would set you back?
Oof, for that level of hand finishing on the dial and that complication, I'd say you're near the top end of 20k, but granted the challenge once again, I'm gonna guess around 15,000 euros, maybe £13,000.
12,500.
Brilliant. So even a little change for a creppers.
Yeah, which is wow. Yeah, 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 which is a lot of money, but for what you're getting here for haute horology, that's quite a snip at that price. if you're into that thing. So my next one, which is going to be even harder to describe, is the Trilobe Enfant Jeunet Dune in titanium. So this has the same movement as the above. It's called a caliber eccentric self-winding mechanical caliber, which has a micro rotor. You can see on the Instagram the actual movement on this one. A 48-hour power reserve and bridges plated with black gold, or gold 5N, as they call black gold. And again, this has a patented mechanism. So this one also has 3 discs. The chapter ring rotates to give the hours anti-clockwise. Instead of this snowman, you've actually got 2 other discs which all rotate anti-clockwise. Also, so you have the minutes disc, which moves anti-clockwise, as does the seconds one. And this is something, again, check out the Instagram. I think we'll have to put a little clip on. We'll have to find a clip, explain how this works, because it's something else. And it's on a domed crystal. It looks so high-end. It looks so damn expensive. And it looks incredible. Again, this would be something you would just look at. You probably wouldn't even try and figure out the time. It's easy to read the time once you know what to do. There's a little marker that goes round as well, but this little triangle, a little red triangle that goes round as well to mark out the time. And this is something like, this is a work of art. And looking at Jacob and Co and MBNF, I'd put this in that territory of thought and design and creativity. It's have a look at the domed crystal as well on this. It's just incredible. It's not just a slight dome, it's a proper domed crystal. Very HYT-esque. If you've seen the watches that HYT have, it's very much like that. And I just think this is just, as independents go, you would not get this from a regular watch brand. And it's titanium, it's not precious metal, so it's not going to be ridiculously priced, but will push the price up a bit. And this is bang on £20,000. It's something else to me. I think it's incredible. The titanium rings are colorized, DLC coated. I mean, I could just talk about this for the whole show, and we just don't want to just go on and on about this watch. But it's incredible. What do you think, Andy?
Yeah, I think that's the issue with all of the watches from today's show is and brands are just so brilliant, right? What they're achieving for the price points, which each pieces and brands come in at. But yeah, this piece in particular, the way they've done the separation with the discs. It almost reminds me of like an
Yeah,
orange peel, a
really
perfect orange peel,
unpeeling, yeah, unraveling.
down onto the dial. And I really like that. Yeah, it's almost got a very organic flow to it. I don't know if that was intentional, but that's the feeling it gives me. But I guess
Yeah.
that's to me at this level of watchmaking, it's art, and art is all down to individual interpretation. And a true artist would say, well, if that's what my art gives you, then that is what it is, right? So it's what it means to the individual. But I think it's really cool. I really like the level of detail. Again, just a fun way of telling the time, but also a really serious looking piece. So again, excellent choice. I love it. Yeah. We really need to get our hands on with this brand, Trilobe. If you're listening, we want to come and hang out with you. Invite us across.
We want to meet you. Well, we could potentially have a guest on who could make that happen for us. You never know.
That is very true. Yeah. Watch this space.
Another short show, we said, but it's not looking that way. Right, Andy, let's power through our final choice.
Okay, so for my final choice of just do what you like, go for any brand you want, I went for Anderson Geneve, founded by Sven Anderson. My word, what a brand. And hopefully I can make you fall in love with a brand the same way I did. Just first, when I first saw the brand in general, when I first saw the pieces, I'm like, these are works of art. These are beautiful watches. But then when you start to understand the story, the importance of Sven Anderson within the industry, then a whole new level of respect comes into play for these pieces. So here I go at trying to do some justice for Anderson Geneve. I'm sure many of you have maybe heard of Anderson Geneve, are a bigger player for sure in the industry, extremely established since 1980 as well. So for an independent, a lot of independent watch brands are quite young. I'd still say 1980 is a relatively young brand, but again, being on the scene maybe a little bit more than some of the others we've covered today. He graduated from the Danish watchmaking school, which is highly regarded and highly respected. After this era, he went just as an ambitious individual would. He went to Switzerland to understand how the best watchmakers in the world make watches. He wanted to study. He wanted to be an apprentice, understand what goes into these pieces to master his craft, master his skills, absorb and learn as much as possible. And then his first job within Switzerland for a brand was actually with another independent, which was with Gublin. And he worked in the after sales department, just servicing the pieces. But because he was such a natural with language, he actually worked at the front of house as well, helping serve customers, which is very strange in the world of watches because the watchmakers are normally tucked away doing their magic in the back and they don't normally interact so directly with the clients. So, that was his first taste, his first experience. Then, during this time, whilst he was working for Gublin, he was working on his own project. And this starts to show you how much of a genius Sven Anderson is. He decided to build a clock inside a bottle. When I say this, I mean like everybody has seen ships in a bottle, which also is an art to do. It's extremely difficult to make these huge ships trapped in these large glass bottles. He decided to do this with a clock and he successfully did it. And this means actually constructing and building the watch inside of the bottle with tools what didn't exist. He had to make his own tools in order to build this clock inside the bottle. And you need to check it out. Again, go to the Instagram. We'll make sure there's a picture of this clock in the bottle. It's a very beautifully shaped bottle and just wow, like who can service that that clock in a bottle? I think only Sven Anderson can service that clock, but amazing achievement. It was actually displayed at the Montrese de Jox watch show, and it's where he really got the recognition of being the watchmaker of the impossible. That was his title given to him. Just he blew people's minds when they saw this. Like imagine in that era, we're going back pre 1980, and it's just like, how do you even do this? It's impossible. How do you build a clock inside a bottle? Like build the mechanism inside a glass bottle? Like it's hard enough for us normal people to imagine having a loop and just putting a movement together where you've got free movement. Imagine building a mechanism in such a restrictive space. It's just absolutely brilliant, right? There's no other way to describe this. And certainly a brand recognized this called Patek Philippe, who need no introduction. And they got Sven Anderson working for them for over 9 years. And not just 9 years as a regular watchmaker. No, he worked in the Atelier des Grandes Complications. So in their Grand Complications department, he was the master behind many brilliant Patek Philippe's. And then in 1980, it was time to establish his brand, which is Anderson Geneve today. What a story, right, Parm? Like, I've not even got to the watches. That's just the story, but just incredible, right? So, the first watch which I've chosen, a beautiful jumping hour. So, it's the 40th anniversary jumping hour in rose gold. I'm going to save the price now because there's quite a bit of story with this piece. It comes in at 37,800 chef. So yes, we're up there now, but my word, it is a piece of art. It's one of the most beautiful jumping hours I've personally ever seen. And the whole dial is one piece of 21 karat blue gold. Now, I've never really seen or understand what blue gold is, but that is what the dial is made out of. And it has this brilliant motif on the dial, which I call the magical lozenges motif. And maybe I'm pronouncing lozenges incorrect, but that's if it sounds French, Pam's laughing his head off now. Yeah, lozenges motif dial looks like strepsils.
Lozenges.
Lozenges dial. I don't know. Does that sound? Is that what is? Does it look like lozenges? I don't know. That's what it was in the description, so I'm just saying
Maybe it is lozenges. Yeah.
which I read. Anyway, we go with that. If I make it sound a bit French, I think I can get away with it. But yeah, check out the motif. It's just absolutely gorgeous, right? The level of detail on this piece is mind-blowing. Even the hands, it's brushed rose gold running minute hand. It's just gorgeous, the piece throughout. Just to give a bit more detail around the watch as well, though, however, very interesting fact as where this 40th anniversary came from was actually going back a little bit to 1995 when he was asked by a Spanish customer, so not myself, but a real, a Spanish national, contacted him and requested a jumping hour complication. He wanted a piece unique. He wanted it not only to be jumping hours, but he wanted a minute repeater as well. So very serious customer, and it was this beautiful, unique piece which was produced. Then that caught Cartier's attention. So after this special commission, Cartier then asked Sven Anderson for his innovation in producing a special watch for them called the Day and Night, or the Jour et Nuit in French. As good as my French will ever be, at least.
First of all, I just want to tell you at home that it took about 40 takes to get that.
And check out this piece. It's incredible. It's a really cool looking Cartier. Again, a piece which I did not know existed. And then this continued with Cartier. It clearly got the attention from the brand. And in 1998, they commissioned him once again to produce 125 Cartier Pashas with the same complication, which, again, I'm a huge Cartier nut. I'm a big fan of Cartier, but I haven't seen these pieces. So it's been eye-opening for me to discover these through more research around Anderson Geneve. So this is why he then wanted to mark the occasion of this amazing jumping hour complication and watch. And he produced his own jumping hour design, watch design, but with the same movement mechanism in 2020 to mark this occasion. And yeah, I think it's absolutely beautiful. The movement is actually a Frederic Piguet movement, which, that's no no bad movement. It's an exceptionally good brand and movement manufacturer. And it's for 11.50. It's a double-barreled movement, automatic 60-hour power reserve. And then the mechanism for the jump power, which dates back, from the Cartiers as well, is of course in-house. It's almost like an additional part of the movement being added, or module, if you would like, by Anderson Geneve. And I just think this is probably one of the nicest looking jumping hours I have seen. But Palm, what do you think to this piece?
Again, stunning, absolutely amazing. That dial just looks, it almost looks like that Goyard. Have you seen that brand Goyard? That kind of pattern they have on their products that they do, whether wallets and bags and things like cases and stuff. Very expensive watch rolls and boxes. But yeah, it looks like that, and the combination with that kind of grayish blue with the rose gold, it works so well. And the rotor on the back, the detailing on that's just so cool, so beautiful. This is art, horological art. Yeah, so that leads us speedily on to number two. Hopefully, there's no French pronunciation in this one.
Yeah, for editor Palm, so we don't have to do 50 takes of my Yorkshire French pronunciation. I try doing the decency of not saying any French for the rest of this show. Otherwise, he'd be speaking a lot of French whilst editing.
Yeah, you'll have to
this,
you'll have to pardon my
this
French. I
podcast.
think, yeah.
So my final piece, and definitely it's the star of the show, is the World Time, and it is absolutely beautiful. It's the Arctic Sunrise, and it just looks incredible. It's a collaboration with BCHH, which is Benjamin Chi Horology. So I managed to say that okay, I believe. So it's a collaboration piece, and it's just incredible. It comes in at 37.8 millimeter. It's in 18 karat rose gold, and it's a multi-part dial where it's a guilloche dial, and then that's a huge process. And again, the inspiration for this dial is the Northern Lights. And again, you really need to see this up close. It's just incredible the way they've done the guilloche to achieve this. If that wasn't enough, then it is enameled as well on the bottom half of the dial. So imagine the process and artistry what goes into this. You have the whole dial gilly shade and finished to such a high standard, and then the enamel artist has to painfully start putting the gold wire, start to create the design, and then hope all the enameling goes correct. Like the tolerances for error must be so tight on this, and it must be so heartbreaking if something goes wrong for either artist. But they work extremely close together, where when you look at the piece, you'd think it was one artist who's put this together. And yeah, you can definitely see the Patek connection, I would say, with this world time. But then I'd say it's definitely got its own unique look to it as well. And I just think it's a masterpiece from the brand. I think it's absolutely, incredible. They don't make many of these at all. There's only 15 made, and they're only going to produce 5 a year over 3 years in time. So, yeah, these are extremely, special pieces. Once again, the movement isn't in house, but they use the highest quality movements what they can source, and 40-hour power reserve. It's an automatic. It's just again, these movements are unrecognizable once Anderson Geneve have done the overworks on them as well. It's such a high level. It's basically the buying a base and then reinventing the whole movement. But yeah, that pretty much concludes my final watch from Anderson Geneve and from this show, which Pam be happy to hear. But I'd love to hear Pam's thoughts on these pieces and Anderson in general. Did I sell the passion? Did I sell the love for the brand?
Yeah, a lot of history, a lot of heritage. Again, I was unaware of that background, that backstory, which I'm sure a lot of us are and will be. Yeah, very Patek vibes actually. Yeah, looking at this, I mean the world timer for sure. I mean, not are there pushers on there, or look, that's one thing that they're not the most prominent pushers on that world timer.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard in the pictures to see how it actually works. It could be on the back of the watch. I'd need to double check.
Okay, well that's
Yeah,
unique.
or that
Yeah,
of extremely flush. Yeah.
yeah, no, very stunning. If you think Patek Philippe, look at this. This is Anderson Genève and Patek are very, very closely matched in finishing and beauty. Yeah, very good. Very good.
Did I tell you the price?
No, you did not.
Did I? Let me just quickly drop the prices. Sorry, I do apologize. So the
In
price,
French, please.
Pam's
Yeah.
like, so the price for the world time is 58,800 chef, which is fantastic for that level of world time, that finishing, what just wow. And then for the jump hour, it's coming in at 37,800 chef. So again, for such an important watchmaker, for such an important independent, I would say, and for the level of detail and finishing what goes into these, the artistry, what goes into the dials and the movement finishing and everything, I think that's an extremely fair price. Once again, quite a humble entry into this challenge, I would say.
Very good. And accessibility is probably a lot not easy. It's not easy. Obviously, they probably don't make many of these, but I'm guessing you don't have to be on a list or something like that. So yeah, stunning. So we will now swiftly move on to my final pick of the sky's the limit price point, and that is a Swiss brand called Ludovic Valois. So the two watches I picked of his are actually from the same range, but they are just both stunning watches. So the first one I picked, I did say, keep an eye out for the lapis lazuli reference later on, and it is the upside down lapis lazuli platinum, and also the black gold version. And there's a reason why I like this one. It really does remind me of another watch, which I'm sure Andy will know. So let me give you a bit of a background on the brand. This is something that's only come to my attention recently, I must say, last couple of months. I think I saw on Instagram it seemed to be quite heavily not promoted, but lots of people posting pictures about Ludovic Valois. So Ludovic was a former watchmaker at FP Journe who, in the thick of the financial crisis in 2009, decided he'd set out on his own and create a watch that would emphasize the importance of the present. So This is known as the upside down. Basically, all the numerals apart from the current hour are upside down, and the current hour is the right way up, and that works throughout the whole day with this incredible movement they've got. Just a bit more about Ludwig Ballois. In 2013, he actually developed the Opus 13 for Harry Winston. So he's a very accomplished watchmaker. FP Jean, Harry Winston, you're hearing some massive names here. And again, he was inspired by a global financial crash in the stock market. And he thought, right, what I'll do, a brave man, think I'll create a high end watch company. So he contemplated the notion that even if just a single figure had the strength to defy the downward trend and stand tall, he was going to defy the financial crash as this single figure for the present hour will stand up tall. That was him during the financial crisis, making this watch brand. So he was keeping on the momentum of his life, as he says in the advertising. So to ensure that the 12-hour markers could independently rotate on their axes and stay in place regardless of the watch's orientation, it would actually be necessary to employ 12 torsion springs and 12 snapping jumpers to actually make those numbers 11 stay upside down and 1 stay the right way up, meaning basically 12 springs and 12 jumpers to actually allow that to happen. This would take far too much power for such a small movement. So what he did was implement what he called a Maltese cross system. So basically, the wheel train is encircled by 12 Maltese crosses to which the hour markers were fixed. When it was at the relevant hour, performed a 180-degree rotation at the top of each hour, and for one of the numbers, while the other 11 stayed upside down. So it was, again, a very complicated movement, which I've just obviously shot myself in the foot trying to explain it. Have a look at this Instagram. So basically, all the numbers are upside down apart from 1. That's probably the easiest way I could say it. And going back to Louis Erard, the Passot 7001 movement, which was used in regulators, is used here. A Ludwig Ballois variation LB01, and this again is a regulator watch with the minutes hand going round and a marker for the hours. So there's a lot going on here. But the only difference between the lapis lazuli and the gold version is the lapis lazuli doesn't have small seconds on their regulator movement on the LB01 like the rose gold one does. So the rose gold one really did remind me of the Vanta Black dialed Endeavour made by Moser. And I think that combination now, to me, rose gold and black dials really stand out to me now. I think that's a perfect combination. But those are my two. I hope I've described them well enough. Probably not. All we can do is try. So that is me done with my selection. And what do you reckon of these two, Andy?
Excellent choices. Yeah, we can all but try, right? With these, again, we think, oh, this be an easy show to do, but just the crazy amount of invention and imagination what goes into to independence, which I think we've displayed today, shows that it can be quite tricky sometimes to describe some of the crazy things what's going on with these pieces or finishing techniques or even the name of some of the watches, if you're from Yorkshire at least. I love these pieces. They're really great. They're good fun. I love the lapis lazuli dial. I think it's beautiful. It's one of my favorite materials, and I can see the Vanta Black vibe, which you was talking about from the Moser Endeavour. I'm with you. I love the black and gold. It's something what just pops for me as well these days. I'm also getting a Burn watches feel, a way the numerals are kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
dancing and
That's
changing,
exactly
right?
what I thought as well. Yeah, the way I
Yeah.
mean, this has got 11. That had 4. This has 12 because I think they only
Yeah,
have
it's
the numerals at 3, 6, 9, and
yeah,
12.
but yeah,
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, this is like
yeah. This
all
is
all the numerals. Yeah, as you
yeah,
say. I think it's fantastic. Like they're both, yeah, Burn and they're doing something obviously different, but yeah, it's just cool how you see little some watches remind you of others. That's all, but it's definitely you. Both watches are unique. Both brands are unique in their own right. But yeah, great choices. Extremely complicated movements that you have chosen. I think I chose crazy dial finishes, and you went for crazy complications this time.
yeah.
But
And stone dials. I do like a stone
and
dial.
stone dial,
My
yeah,
secret
yeah.
shame. Yeah. Um, Complicated doesn't come cheap, unfortunately. So the lapis lazuli is in platinum. So you don't expect it to be cheap. That comes in at £96,195. And the rose gold version is £92,000. So it comes in cheaper. But this part of the game was just Dreamland. So I hit Dreamland with this one. And creating awareness of brands that our listeners are probably not aware of, which is the aim.
Yeah, 100%. To educate ourselves and hopefully share some great information with our valued listeners, right? So I believe that is all we have time for today. As always, please follow us at Instagram at chrono_passion_7. We're quite active on there, more than we have in the past. We really want to up engagement. So make sure you check out our stories. We're putting questions there every day. We want your feedback, your interaction. It's great to hear from you, your feelings around different brands, different topics as well. But the idea to have the community group on Instagram, unfortunately, Instagram have decided to close that. So it's no longer going to be an option to have Instagram groups. However, watch this space. We are working on a website which will hopefully launch within the next few weeks. We really want to deliver quality, so we're not going to rush it. But when we do launch it, we hope to provide you a very valuable platform where you can tune in to listen to the podcast, check out the pictures online on the website along with the show, so you don't have to go to two separate places. We don't have to worry about Instagram thinking it breaks a community guideline when we upload some pictures. We can even work to add a community section to that website as well. There's a lot we can do with there, but of course, brick by brick. We don't want to, run before we can walk, but we are working to deliver you the next phase of Chrono Passion 7, and we're extremely excited about it, and hopefully all you guys are as well. But Pam, be extremely happy to hear that it's goodbye from me for this episode.
Yep. Thanks, Andy. Thank you all for listening. Once again, thank you for your continued support. And that is us done for another show and for the day. And so we'll see you and you'll hear us in the next one.